Welcome back. In this lecture, we will be learning about if-else statement. So in Python if-else, Python conditions and if statements. So what are Python conditions? So conditions would be like comparing two things and then getting some results. And in that comparison, what should be the conditions that would be kept in mind? Or let's just say if you have any query related to a user or related to a system, then what should be your program to tackle those queries and reach out to your goals? Okay, so Python support the usual logical conditions from the mathematics, and we'll be learning about the comparison operators and different types of operators too. Okay, so one thing to keep in mind for now is this sign would be used to compare two variables. So right now we are like comparing a and b, and let's just say if a is 5 and b is, let's just say, is like 6. So if we are comparing like these two things, then the output would be like false, that these two numbers, if one is like 5, other one is like 6, so both of these numbers are not equal. Okay, so that would be the operator for that purpose, and not equal to would be with this exclamation mark and equal sign, and then less than, greater than, equal to, and smaller than, and other. And then these conditions can be used in several ways, most commonly in if statements, because if would be based on some comparisons or some conditions. If this conditions don't satisfy, do this. So if statement is written by using the if keyword in Python. So let's just say if we have a program that is kind of like doing if statement work, then how would that program would be like? We have initialized two variables with integer values. Okay, we know numbers without the decimals are integers. Okay, and then we have to write like if and then space, first variable, second variable, and a comparison operator in between them, and then that colon sign. And we know we use this colon sign whenever we have a function or any condition or anything like that. So after that, when you press enter, so when you just press enter, then automatically you would be getting some predefined or default indentation. So these indentations are normally like of two digits. Okay, so let's just say we have compared b is greater than a, and if this satisfies, then do this. And what is this? That b is greater than a. Okay, so this program, if we just write this program in our compiler window, let's just say we just do that for right now. So I'm just writing Colab, and then I'm getting automatically the link colab.research.google docs, and then let's just open our notebook, introduction to Python. And we know the first thing that we have to do whenever we open our compiler is we have to connect this thing. So this is the connection button. With that connection thing, we are just scrolling down, and then we will be creating a new space for our if condition part. So I'm just adding a text part here. We are doing like if statements, and if statements and conditions. Okay, and then now what we have to do is to initialize two variables, a equals to 5, b equals to 10. Then we have to write if a is greater than b, then that ratio sign, then pressing enter, I will be getting the default indentation. And then what I have to write, print a message that a is greater than b, and I'm running it. So to run, we know we have to click on this option, or just the shortcut key of this is press shift enter, and you will get your output. Okay, so I'm just running this thing, and in that running thing I'm not getting anything because this condition right now is false. So let's just say if I just change this to a is smaller than b, then I have to change the message to, then that would be like smaller than b. So running it again, and now I'm getting a print message a is smaller than b because the conditions kind of satisfies. Okay, now let's move to the other part. Okay, so we have tried this part of the code. Okay, in this example we see two variables a and b, and then comparing those two, and then if conditions get true, then we get the print statement to our screens. Okay, so we have tested this particular text of the code. Okay, so indentation, we know Python is like super touchy about the indentation part. Python relies on indentation, which is like white space at the beginning of the line that would be after the colon signs, and we would be using these colon signs uh, quite in different kind of programming structures. Okay, to define the scope in the code, other programming languages often use like curly brackets. We know this part. C++ use this, and then there are like other different languages which use some other structure. Okay, so Python is like touchy about indentation. So when thing is indented, it would be considered that it is the part of the above statement which is not indented, at least at this level. Okay, so if statement without the indentation will erase an error, because we know this thing that if I just write this code, then I will get an error, because the if statement was supposed to get something downward, which would be saying something that if this condition is satisfied, then you have to do something related to that one. Okay, so you have to make sure if you are using this colon sign and then if statement, there should be an indented part. Okay, now let's move back, and yeah, we have seen that using this thing will get an error. Now another part of the statement would be using elif. Elif, so elif is like another part of the condition in which you would be testing different conditions at once. Okay, so in this situation, two variables initialize with the same thing, then we are kind of doing like if b is greater than a, which is kind of right like no, so print this thing. Or if elif means else if. In C++ we use else if this way. In Python we use elif. If both of them are like equal, then print this message. Okay, and let's just stress this part of the code too. And so we wrote I have to add the indent. The super and the best way is use the backspace, you would get to the upper side, and then press enter, you will get your desired indentation. So let's just say I'm just writing that wrong condition. Okay, and now what I'm saying, so I have to like get out of the indentation of the if and want to test another statement, which is like if a is smaller than b, then print, I just have to change the structure of this a is smaller than b, and in this statement I'm just writing like greater than b. Okay, and let's just say, right, let me just run now and we'll see which message we get whatever the condition is true. So a is smaller than b, which is like here, so that's why we get that message. Okay, now let's just move back to the other part of the if statement. So you guys have to make sure this thing that whatever the condition you are using, you have to make that particular part as indented. Okay, that particular part as indented. Okay, and the other remaining thing would be like super in the same line. You have to make sure about this thing too. Okay, now let's just move towards another part of the code, which is else. Okay, so the else keyword catches anything which isn't caught by the preceding conditions. So one more thing also, we can write like multiple elif conditions. Okay, multiple elif. Okay, we'll be creating some multiple elifs in our current program, but let's just read this part of the code. So first variable initialize, second if condition is like if b is greater than a, you will get indented and this message will be printed. Then elif, if both are equal, do this part of the code, execute this part of the code. Or if nothing is true, then use this part of the code. Okay, now let's just move back to our program. Okay, so let me just write another elif condition 2. We can add as many as we want. So a is double equals to this, then print is equal to b. Okay, or else, what else? Print there is something missing in the program. Although I have like initialized all of the conditions right here, but let's see what we get in this program. Okay, let's just see for now. So I'm running the statement and scrolling down. A is smaller than b. Okay, let's just say for now, let's just use kind of like to move to the else part. Okay, let me just initialize this thing, apple. So we know string and integers cannot be compared. So what would be the result? Okay, so we are comparing these two things. Yeah, so this is an error because we cannot really compare a string a string with an integer. Okay, let's just make some thing other and guys, you have to be really sure about these things too, that there would be errors a lot of time. Okay, so I'll try to make a video of that would be like completely only for the errors. Okay, so we'll be talking about the errors in our sooner videos, in the later videos too. Okay, so let's just say we have to execute the else part. Let's just say I'm just commenting these two lines. So for commenting like multiple lines, you can just use like control and then the forward slash. Those lines would be like commented. Okay, and let me just make both of those values equal. Now the greater and smaller conditions would be like false, and we'll be executing the else part of the code. So there is something missing in the program, which is both of the numbers are like kind of equal. Okay, so let's just move back to the screen now. And okay, one more thing, that we don't really need elif every time. Okay, we don't really need elif every time. If we don't have like multiple conditions, we can just simply use the if and else part. Okay, and that's like okay, and the short at hand if. So what would be the shorthand if in Python? So which is like in single line, that would be like if the condition ratio sign, then in that same line, no need of indentation, just add a space bar to separate the print, and then this thing, and the shorthand if else would be, the shorthand if else would be one integer, two integer, and then print a. If this condition satisfies, else print this part of the code. Okay, and then let's just have some other part of the code right here too. But so let's just start the exercise part of the code now. So you have to do we'll be talking about the if conditions in the next video too, but for this session let's just start the exercise. So the first question is like print hello world if a is greater than b. So you have to write like where you have to place if, where should be the operator, and then what should be the sign at the end of the if to start what should be added. Okay, so we know how to do that part. Okay, and then the second question would be like print hello world if a is not equal to b. You have to be sure like where the things should be placed. Okay, and then the third question is like print yes if a is equal to b, otherwise print no. So what should be printed, what should be written here, and then what should be the part of this side of the code, and you have to do that thing by yourself. Okay, so print one. Okay, in the message, if a is equal to b, print 2 if a is greater than b or otherwise c. So here what would be use, because we have like multiple conditions. Okay, so what should be added in these part of the code, you have to do that by yourself. Okay, that's all for now. We'll be talking about in the next video too. Thank you.